there, little buddies, and welcome to yet another edition of the Boob Tube Buddies podcast, in which we will be discussing Twin Peaks: The Return, Part 10. I am Mathis. I almost said I'm Kristin. Wouldn't that have been weird if I didn't know who I was?
I would have without hesitation, I've been like, and I am Mathis.
Right? Man, that would have been a very Twin Peaks thing to do.
Should have just went with it.
I should have. Well, anyway, I'm Mathis, and I'm joined to the Mr. Jackpots to my Dougie Jones.
I like it.
Kind of works.
Hello.
Kind of the same.
Hello.
Kind of the same thing, but they put two and two together.
Absolutely.
Anyway, how are you doing, Kristin?
I am fabulous. How are you?
I'm doing good. I hear you're pulling a two-nighter on podcasting. What'd you do last night?
Game of Thrones.
Fantastic. So are you like a very, very big Game of Thrones fan? Is that how you got that gig?
I've never read the books, but I've probably watched each episode about 6 to 10 times, depending on the episode.
My goodness. I could probably just show you a naked penis and you could tell me what episode it's from.
Probably.
At this point.
But that's a different talent of mine. So. Different time, different place.
Anyway, and I haven't seen any of them that much, so I couldn't do it with boobs. But
what?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I've seen all of them. I haven't like watched them in triplicate or anything.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's very few shows that I tend to do that with. I do plan on rewatching all of them before the final season. I'm also the type of guy that once a show ends, completes, like that's when I like to go rewatch it and piece everything together, because year after year, like it's hard to keep up with the nuance of it. Although,
see, I like to theorize, so I just watch them over and over and over again for little things I may have missed. Because unlike David Lynch's Twin Peaks, there is meaning behind little subtleties.
Yeah. No, and I'm that way more with movies, mainly because it's just less work, I think. But now that we do the podcast, it's like you have to be that way with everything. But you know what? Without further ado, Twin Peaks is weird, which means we probably got some weird news, don't we?
I have some weird news.
Oh my God! Why don't you kick it off then?
Okay. All right. So members of a Florida church are upset that they were sent collection notices for not tithing. I don't know if it's tithing or tithing.
Tithing.
It's tithing. Sorry.
Yeah. The Bible I have read multiple times.
I went to Catholic school for 12 years, so I should know this. But but they were sent collection notices for not tithing at least $50 a month. This church is the Greater Mount Moriah Primitive Baptist Church in Tampa, Florida. About 6 months ago, this girl, Candace Peterson, joined the church, and she received a collection notice for $50 a month. It plus listed other fees, including $5 a month for her 11-year-old daughter, totaling up to $1,000 a year that these people expected to be part of the church or sent to collections.
Wait, so they didn't just like send them like a bill like, hey, you're not doing your part, but they sent it to collections like for their credit and everything?
Yes.
Jesus, that's ridiculous.
Yep, and apparently this was an effort to pay off the church's debt. But I mean, $1,000 a year?
Well, yeah.
That's more than my Amazon Prime membership.
Yeah, it's a lot more than an Amazon Prime membership, and Amazon Prime is worth something.
Don't go there. Whoa.
Yeah. Anyway, one more joke I'll make. What was the name of the church?
The Greater Mount Moriah Primitive Baptist Church in Tampa, Florida.
Keyword primitive.
Primitive.
That was my last joke. Okay.
But
that is not just weird, but kind of infuriating news. So I'm going to take us to just something real zany that I thought was so ridiculous. Which is that in a hospital near Birmingham, England, a woman went in for routine cataract surgery, and
shut up.
This is your second one, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
God damn it. Okay. Either way, I'm
love it.
Right? How is it that we're doing this? This is one of the only weird stories that actually popped up on my normal news app, because normally I actually go and search weird news and find stuff, but Maybe anyway. Okay. Well,
you know what's so funny is this time I went and searched.
oh man, it's just these weird coincidences in life, right? Very Blue
Peaks.
Rose. Yeah, very blue. Okay. Well, this woman, she's 67 years old. She's having cataract surgery, and she had this bluish mass on one of her eyes. And if you've ever seen cataracts, it does kind of look, like this bluish type thing. But what it was
My schnauzer.
was 17 contact lenses mashed together into one mass.
It was 27, 10 in one eye, 17 in the other.
Oh, I didn't even know. Oh, I didn't even know there was 10 the other eye. Oh my God, that's crazy. And
Yes.
I, I'm not here to brag, but I have 20/20 vision, right? I don't have glasses. I don't have contacts.
That's something to brag about because I definitely.
Well, so do you wear contacts then?
Well, I did all the way up until like a year and a half ago where I had an instance where I thought I had pink eye, but then I got it again like 3 days later. I just had a baby, so I'm like, maybe it happened. But then 3 days later, I get it again. I go to the optometrist, and it's some like bacterial thing from my solution.
Uh-huh.
And like not even a week later, it's all over the news that the solution carried this like bacterial infection that kind of emulated pink eye, like you could not see. I was like, it was so debilitating, and I've been frightened to wear them ever since. Cool story, Katie Holmes.
Do you think it was just like a disgruntled Chad-like employee that was just farting in the contact solution at the factory?
Absolutely.
That's probably what.
There's no other explanation.
That had to be what it was.
It had to be.
Anyway, so public service announcement. Oh, I got later in the article. It did say the 10 the other eye. Public service announcement. This is what Julia tells our son all the time because he has contacts, and I didn't really realize why it mattered, but that's why you don't want to sleep overnight with contacts. Is you don't want to reuse contact solution, and you don't want to wear the lenses longer than recommended. Otherwise, you end up having surgery so you can see, and all you needed to do is take your fucking contacts out.
Yep.
All right. Well, since we don't have a third story, why don't we move straight into our award-winning segment, Summon It Up in a Tweet.
Oh yeah, we're summing it up, so summon it up, summon it up. Oh yeah, we're summing it up. Oh yeah, we're summing it up, so summon it up, summon it up and up.
Tweet.
Okay, so I'm gonna go first because you.
Is it award-winning?
What? Of course, it's award-winning.
Okay.
It won my
I'll
heart.
buy it. It won my heart, definitely.
Right? I mean, I regularly give us awards for things.
I like it.
Yeah, gold stars and such. So I am going to go first because yours apparently is so good that you had to do more than one and shared the one that you won't share on air with me prior. So I can only assume that mine is lesser. Are you ready for this?
No! Oh, God. Yes, I am ready for yours.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I think this rhymes. Yeah, it rhymes. Okay, I'm going to try to rhyme it. Casino brothers got their ladies 3. Weird personalities, especially Candy. Dougie, it seems, can bang like a pro. And Richard Horne is on the go, go, go. Crowd goes wild. Yeah. Thank you. All right.
I liked it. No, that was good.
You ready to knock it out of the park?
It feels like I'm just continuing from yours.
Oh, perfect. It's the sequel. All right, let's do it.
So, okay. Dougie's fresh and Janie E's feisty. The Mitchum brothers are douchebags and Chad is super shisty. The entire Horne clan are fucking out of their nog, and Laura is the one according to the lady with the log.
Ooh, that was very good, and that was something. Okay, that was definitely the better one. I'm glad that one went last. So, because this is a lot more plot driven, like this episode and last episode, it's still a weird show, but we're out of the weirdness. I think we're gonna actually have a little more structure to this episode.
Absolutely.
So where do you want to start?
And what I liked about this episode is they really focused on certain characters in chunks throughout the episode. It almost felt like a normal television show. I don't know if I like that.
Right. Yeah, the last two have felt a little more like traditional Twin Peaks, except for, I don't know, just the still really weird elements they do. So they just have weird quirks, and the old show still had quirks, but, for example, the stuff with Candy, like when she accidentally hits one of the Mitchum brothers in the face with,
Yeah.
like with the fly, and she's just like like a little toddler when a toddler's upset and it's
Inconsolable.
right when they're crying so hard they look like this and I can't say like.
How can you love me when I beat you?
But like she goes from that to barely listening to him in the control center.
It's so weird. I love it.
Yeah, so it does
So weird.
does still have that type of stuff. But let's start off with the lovely Richard Horne.
Oh, that sweet relationship that he has with that woman?
Yeah, that lady's like, I saw you hit the kid with a car. I gotta say, that lady, kind of asking for it.
Yeah, I mean, she's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Doesn't have a lot to save her except for a lock on an RV. And she's got a crazy person coming at her, and that's what she says. It's like, are you really wanting to poke that bear? Really?
Yeah, I love how she's like, I called the cops.
Pretend you're not home.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to say I called the cops. Like, that's a reasonable thing, right? Especially if he suspects that she knows he hit the kid. You might say, I called the cops, get the fuck out of here before they come. But then to be like, yeah, I called the cops. Couldn't really get or actually, she just says I called the cops, but then I guess the issue is that Richard Horne knows Chad, so he's like, well, when did you call him? Well, they're not here yet, which means Chad's already saved me. And then she's like, well, I also wrote that letter in the snail mail.
Stupid.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Very, very dumb. I would have just been like, hey, Richard, how are you? You're such a nice young man. I really appreciate you. And then let the cop show up, right?
I probably would have tried to hide all the way up, like just waited out a few minutes to see if any cops showed up. And then maybe told him I called the cops, but I would definitely have never said anything about that letter.
Yeah. I just wouldn't confront the person, right? If I saw him hit a kid, I would just call the cops and not say a damn thing to them.
Exactly. There you go.
Right?
Preventative measures there.
Yeah, like I'm not the police. I don't need to take law into my own hands. I don't need to be a vigilante.
So in the episode, he pretty much reaches out to Chad to swipe that letter.
Yeah, so he beats the shit out of that lady. He then basically burns her RV to the ground. Like I don't know if it actually ends up showing it, but he leaves the oven on and has a candle lit. So the whole RV is going to be gone, getting rid of the evidence. And then Chad, man, he is super sly with Lucy.
He is, but I think Lucy can be unexpectedly sly herself, and she might have still seen him swipe it. Because back in the original show, like when she had recorded what Bobby and Mike were talking about in the other room, and then handed it off to Dale, I think it was like in the first or second episode after Laura had died. And they were talking about getting Jay, which was James. And she can kind of be a little understated at times, too, because she's flighty most times.
Yeah, no, she is very, I don't know, she's unpredictable, but she's definitely curious around the way that Chad's acting, because Chad's kind of known as a douche. And so for him to be like, man, what a beautiful day. It's just so nice out. Like, oh, is the mail come already? You know what? It's a beautiful day. I want an excuse to go outside. I'll go get the mail. Man, I got the mail. Here it is, Lucy. You know what? Such a beautiful day. It's worth celebrating with a donut. I'm now going to walk away. None of this is weird. I'm sure you'll think nothing of it.
Exactly. Well, because he underestimates her and thinks she's dumb, so she's not going to notice an ounce of that.
Yeah, what a Chad.
What a Chad.
What about the rest of the Horns?
Okay. Jeez. Okay, so first off, Johnny taped to that chair with that repeating bear, like, why does he have to be, or I guess he has to be taped to the chair because he runs around uncontrollably, right?
Well, I think it's from, we saw that prior episode where he runs into, yeah, he knocked himself out, and now his mouth is, like, wired shut. So I think he's tied up right now until he heals, but, like, I don't know, he kind of ran around in the original series, and he's just, I don't know, he can't be left to his own devices.
Don't try to tame Johnny.
Yeah. I mean,
that's the lesson here.
The other lesson here is obviously that I can't remember her name. What's the wife's name? Sylvia.
Sylvia.
I mean,
this was a scary scene. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's real terrible and rapey every scene he's in.
Super rapey.
Right?
Like, so rapey. Like, I would be... Here's the thing. In another world, if he was, like, a nice guy, cleaned up everything, some people would consider him attractive, right? There's just something about him that skeezes me so bad. I don't actually know who's more skeezy. really have a hard time of a would you rather with Richard Horne and then what's his name? The one that beat the shit out of Becky Burnett, her boyfriend.
Oh,
the guy from Get Out.
Yeah. The dude with the guy that's addicted to drugs and has like.
So they're both so like.
Yeah.
They pick that casting director. Good job.
Yeah, I will say that the dude that's in Get Out and whatnot. It's weird that he's not a Culkin.
Right.
He kind of looks like a Culkin.
We talked about this in the first, or we talked about this a while ago.
Yeah, we may have.
I completely agree. It's mind blowing.
Know what the Richard Horne reminds me of? Did you ever watch the cartoon Doug?
Yes.
He reminds me of the bully on Doug with the pointy nose and that's green.
Yes. What's his name? Roger?
I think it is Roger. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched it.
Yeah.
You ever watch Orange Is the New Black?
Barely.
Okay, well,
yeah.
do you know Yoga Jones? She's like a tiny blonde, peaceful prisoner in there.
I don't.
She was the voice of Patty Mayonnaise.
Oh, really? Okay, that's
Yeah.
funny. I'm typing in Yoga Jones now. Oh, that's funny. I did see her on the show and thought her voice was familiar, and that makes all the sense in the world. So,
And the guy that does Doug does like Robot Chicken, or what is it he does now?
I don't know.
Oh, Futurama.
Oh, Billy West or whatever maybe his name is.
I know way too many facts about Doug.
yeah, wrong podcast. We should tune in next time for our retrospective on the seminal cartoon from the 90s, Doug. All right.
Where we actually put a parallel between Doug and Dougie.
Oh, there we go. Doug definitely has more wits about him.
I would say so.
So, yeah, she gives them the code. Sylvia gives them the code. Richard takes the money. He's the worst. She then calls Ben Horne. Ben Horne, I feel like she downplays what happened.
She really did, because that felt like it felt like a serious
life-threatening,
attack.
right?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
And she's not just like, hey, it was more like, yeah, our fuck up of a kid came and took the money, and you need to send me more. And he's like, look, I'm not sending you more money, Sylvia. And she's like, well, then I'm calling my fucking lawyer. It's not like we got to do something about your kid, or like, is it his kid? Is it his grandkid?
Well, there's the problem. It's his grandkid, so which begs the question: where is Audrey Horne?
Right, it's gotta be.
Sherilyn Finn was supposed to be on this season.
It's Audrey Horne, and like you were saying one other episode,
Mr. C.
it is Mr. C's kid. It's got to be Mr. C's kid.
It really does. I mean, they always had kind of the original Dale and her always had the same kind of similar relationship.
Yep, but he would not do it because she was a high schooler, and he is a man of high moral character.
And he wasn't so much after Bob took over.
No, after Bob took over,
He's like, I still like your perfume.
Yeah, after Bob took over, he was exclusively after underage women.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, fair enough. So.
Oh wait, so Ben Horne ends up asking Beverly Ashley Judd to have dinner, and the only reason I wanted to point this out is like he said no last episode to her.
Yeah.
He turned her down, or last time she was there. And now he's asking her to dinner, and it's such a different Ben Horne than the original season. Like, my immediate reaction was, oh, what's happened to you?
He started smoking pot because that's their new business.
You think that's what it is? He's just given up on life? It's like, whatever, man.
No, I don't think he's given up on life. I just think he's not as stressed. He had his whole, like, weird Jacoby moment where he came out on the other side after, being a Confederate soldier and, like, conquering his mind. And
that's right.
Now he's smoking pot. Obviously, he smokes the right amount because he's pretty laid back now. He's not so high strung. Meanwhile, his brother is still just lost in the wilderness, obviously smoking the most potent stuff in the world.
Yes, and that's pretty much exactly what we see in this episode. He's lost in the woods.
Yeah, still lost in the woods.
The end.
What I would also like to point out is that we get a Dr. Jacoby scene, which, is still like just very Alex Jones and amazing. But I love that Nadine clearly owns a Silent Runner store.
Oh my God, I know.
Right?
At first I thought it looked like the sign for the Twin Peaks Sheriff's Office because it's like the same font, same colors. And then that was the first reaction. And then I read the sign and I'm like, what? I was so happy for her.
That is so funny. Then behind the silent runner, she has a gold spray painted $29 Dr. Jacoby limited edition shovel.
I mean, you gotta shovel the shit.
Gotta shovel the shit. Maybe, we're about 20 minutes in. Maybe now would be a time for the Brookie interview, an ad, and we come back. What's
Come
a
back.
Come back. We will tie up the more convoluted points of this, which is all, the casino and that and the girls and Dougie and blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
All right.
Blah, 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 blah.
We'll be right back.
Player 3 has entered the game.
All right, buddies, we are here once again with the fantastic Brookie Shy, where he is going to talk about this week's episode of Twin Peaks, the themes therein, as well as whatever theories and things we think the show's going to turn towards. So what's going on, man?
Nothing much, man. It's been an unusual week, I would say, in the fact that it's the most usual Twin Peaks have felt. It actually feels like mid-season 2, where there's a lot of floating, sort of thematically linked, if not plot linked, like little vignettes that I think it's really building towards something, because, like, in my opinion, the overall intensity and overall emotional resonance is increasing. So 10 is usually like considered like the completion of a full cycle. There's 10 stages in the Kabbalic tree. 10 in the tarot is the Wheel of Fortune, which on a regular thing is a completed cycle, but if it's reversed, it's a completed cycle that spins out of control. And I think we see that definitely with Eamon Farron's like very intense portrayal of Richard Horne in this episode. But also 10, if you break it down symbolically, is the male phallus and the female vulva. And this episode is it's a very layered and very, in my opinion, a very disturbing and confrontational look at how modern society, how men and women are in very perilous and oftentimes like lightly misunderstood things are like heavily tragic and terrifying, Sure. So a few things about these different things that stand out to me. I really liked Amy Shields. Her character is Candy in the Las Vegas scenes with Robert Knepper and Jim Belushi.
Yeah.
And I beyond like being established as like this aesthetic image in the earlier episodes where it's the beautiful pastel pink contrasted with the blue-gray wall, and it's just there for aesthetic effect, to have an episode that sort of deftly, with very few touches, actually shades out this poor young woman. There's the intro of her, where the comedic thing where she's chasing down the fly and then hits Robert Knepper in the face with the remote control. Yeah. I don't know about you, but to me that seems like Lynch's homage to the famous Fly episode of Breaking Bad. I know he said like that was one of the shows, that and Mad Men, that he looked at, the few things that he liked.
Yeah, so, I didn't even think about that, but that makes sense.
The aesthetic of Mad Men with like the slapstick comedy of like Breaking Bad right there. But then like a few scenes go by and they return back and they're watching the news and they see all the Dougie stuff and she's sobbing hysterically, And it sort of reminds me of when Andy smacks his face with the board in the original series and he's wobbling back and forth with a bloody nose.
Yeah.
Where at first it's funny, right? The contrast is funny, and then it becomes like, wait, why is this still going on? And like, it really made me uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? Because,
very much. Well, she starts crying like a toddler, Like,
yeah. And
yeah.
It's terrifying, and then the dude's just like, it's all right, it's not a problem. But that's like an obvious sign of a woman who knows that these men are capable of extreme violence. And later in the episode we see that they put a hit on Dougie. They want to take him down. They're capable of extreme violence. We've seen them beat another man like down, an employee, in front of these women, right? And they were stoic then, but it's just all this internalized emotion. And even a slight mistake that's like a sign of clear emotional abuse, you know. And then we see it moving on. You got Becky, Shelley's daughter, played by Amanda Seyfried, and her shitty fucking boyfriend. What's that dude's name? Scott. He's played by Caleb Landry Jones. I didn't pick up on it when I first saw him because like he looks like more scuzzy in Twin Peaks, but he's the brother from Get Out, the racist like lacrosse brother.
Yeah.
And I caught it this time because like he's like screaming at her and he's all garbled and like fucked up, and it's like an ugly but extremely real. Like I don't think more TV shows are doing like that portrayal of like a shitty, insecure, abusive person, in my opinion, with such like clarity. And it's a terrible thing to see. But his voice, I wouldn't think about, like, I always thought that Caleb Landry Jones was like a British actor who was trying to put on an American accent, but he's from Texas. That dude's voice is like naturally, like, he has this fucked up quality to it. It's like,
yeah, it's
a
little
an
off.
affectation or an accent, you know? And like poor Amanda Seyfried, like she's so put upon in like everything that she's in. Like she has those big eyes and it just conveys like total sorrow.
Yeah.
Even as far back as Mean Girls or Big Love, when she was like first coming in, like she's sort of a character actress who is like born to be put upon, like terrible tragic thing.
Her and Bobby both have very like cartoon like expressive eyes, you know?
Well, that's the thing. Like, we're given that their last name is Burnett. Like her and Steve they're married, but we don't know who Shelley had the child with. She doesn't look like Leah. I'm Leah's child. I kind of, in my mind, I've already assumed that it's Bobby, you know. And it's just like the flip script. She's living in like the same like Wheel of Fortune cycle, like repeating the same mistakes as, well, not even mistakes, but living in like the same world that her mother and probably like what Twin Peaks perpetuates.
True. Yeah.
And going on to the probably the most terrifying thing about the episode is Eamon Farron's Richard Horne. We get probably definite confirmation that he's Audrey's child. We still haven't seen her yet, but that I would call it a home invasion scene.
Yeah.
Not just with Miriam, but with his mother. Definitely reminded me of like how Clockwork Orange is shot, like the clinical whites of it, with the classical music. But the thing is about him is that, with the exception of when he's introduced, you don't see like the physical violence like carried out literally. It's like the intensity of the threat. He's almost like we're not allowed to see him fully deliver something unless it's like by pure unthinkability. Like when he runs over the child, he's screaming at his mother. It's obvious that like something bad would happen to him, but he has no rhyme or reason for the consequences. It's like it's a scared and a pathetic type of male rage, you know?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But it's the type of male rage that when confronted by the least slightest little obstacle flips out like a child, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe it's just me, but the more I think about it, like it kind of has that weird little carry through line of I'm Audrey Horne and I get what I want type thing, but it's carried through to like the most horrifying like realization of like modern society, where I mean in the early 90s they wouldn't have had the ability to show like a grandchild robbing his grandmother, but that stuff happens all the time. Like the world that we live in with the opioid epidemic, like in the Appalachians, stuff like that, things like that happen all the time. It's a very scary world. I personally, I don't know where I sit with this episode because of the way that Lynch portrays women as victims. So that's why I'm very interested in how the Diane responding to the message with Evil Coop thing will plot out, because if anything, in my opinion, Twin Peaks could use a true villainess, like a woman with some sort of power, and she's like the only woman who's like cussing, being like, fuck you, Gordon, fuck you, Tammy, fuck you, Albert, all this stuff, right?
Sure.
So
yeah,
I don't know, that's just my thoughts, really. I'm looking forward to episode 11. I think there's a reason, going with the idea that 10 is a completion of the cycle and that this show is inherently built on magic and Laura Palmer. I think it's, to me, most fascinating that they saved the end to bring back Catherine Coulson, God rest her soul, rest in peace, to deliver the message about how Laura is the one. You know, she says, like, electricity is humming. So I would take that as this is the halfway point. You know, I've always predicted magically that 11 is the power number. So the 11th episode, I've always thought 3 and 11 would be like the two that were most important. And if you'll think back to 3, it was the startup of the like most avant-garde aspects of the return, and then we got like the beginning of Dougie, which completely flipped the script. You know?
Yeah, very
so
much
I'm saying
yeah.
11's going to be like what hinges on the whole themes of what's to come. So that's my thoughts for now. Thanks for letting me hop on for a minute, Mathis.
Absolutely, man. As always, a pleasure. I'm excited to see what 11 shapes up to be, if it's in line with your theories. But I agree. We're like 2 episodes into it feeling too normal for comfort, so to speak. So I'm ready to see some shit break.
Yeah, it's almost like an Oasis. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's the space between the Twin Peaks, almost.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, man.
Oh yeah. Catch you later, little buddies.
Player 3 has left the game.
All right, we are back. Once again, a huge thank you to Brookie Shy Shy for always contributing to our Twin Peaks podcast. He is more hardcore than any of us in regard to this show, and
his insight is incredible. Like, he's got amazing insight. Like, I could listen to that over and over again.
Yeah, no, it is fairly, it's pretty entertaining. I haven't actually gotten to listen to the Game of Thrones podcast that y'all did last night yet, but I assume it's what y'all are dropping down, because I mean, he's watched these shows countless times, so good stuff.
I mean, just like, you know, I didn't realize, I did remember that what's his name, Dana Ashbrook, Bobby, had killed somebody in previously, but I didn't realize it was a cop and that it was a federal offense. I didn't.
Yeah, I just forgot that he did the whole murder thing, because it's just like crazy to think that he never obviously had those repercussions, because he's a cop now.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You know how I knew him before I watched Twin Peaks?
No. He
Dawson's Creek.
Bobby's in Dawson's Creek?
Bobby had a huge arc in Dawson's Creek around the 5th season. He played Pacey's boss off like their version of Wall Street in Boston.
How many seasons did Dawson's Creek have?
6.
Maybe I didn't see the last season or 2, because I watched every single episode, you know, doing homework while my sister watched it, and I loved horror movie, like homemade horror movie effects, so I also kind of enjoyed it, but I don't remember that at all.
Whatever, it was a good show for us growing up.
Yeah.
And no, it was after they went to college, and Boston, and Pacey does the whole chef thing, and then he leaves the chef thing and he decides to go to not Wall Street, but do stocks and bonds, and he's his skeezy boss. And so we started watching Twin Peaks for the first time when I was pregnant a couple years ago, and as soon as he showed up, I'm like, what?
My God.
What?
I feel like this should be titled Twin Peaks Part 10, Doug and Dawson's Creek.
I know, all the past D shows, that was all I was allowed to watch.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about Dougie and Janie and their fantastic relationship now that she's actually seen Dougie with his shirt off.
I mean, the power of a good body, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, she's obviously knew he lost weight, because remember the first time she dresses him? She has to get all the big clothes. But then when they go to the doctor, she takes him to the doctor, which is such a weird thing. Like, I don't know, it's this weird slapstick joke that no matter what happens, she basically mothers him and coddles him and doesn't question it. Yet we know from the way Dougie was acting beforehand, like,
that he's completely different.
She never used to do that, because we've seen him at least interact with Jade. So,
and she acts like it's a disability she's been dealing with all her life with him, and it literally just started. And the doctor's even worse, because he should be like, this is not normal. And instead, they're both just like, look at his bod.
Right? The only person that's kind of had a normal reaction is Ethan Suplee and whatever woman he's with. they ran into him when he was Mr. Jackpots in the casino. They're the only ones that are like, "Are you okay? Like, can we get you a ride?" Like, they at least thought something was awry, and they only interacted with him for 30 seconds.
I mean, come on. And she obviously is just like the most vain, like devoid of anything, because like she doesn't care that he's acting differently. It's like, because remember in the beginning they got all that money. So it's like, I don't care that you're acting differently now that we have money. Well, I don't care that you're acting differently now that you look hot. Yeah. Like, she's obviously a great person.
Really. And then she bangs him. He smiles as if he's having some damn good coffee. And
flailing about.
So, yeah, his hands going up and down and up and down. It's like he's conducting an orchestra. So they both get off, and then like the next morning, she's just like, "Hey, last night was fucking amazing, and I'm gonna tell you that because I don't know. It's not like you fucking listen."
Like she like hates him forever, and then now she's like, "Hey, boy, hey."
Yeah, it's almost like she realized that she doesn't like having a partner. She just wants the money, the house, the convenience, and the occasional sex, and that this Dougie is perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah. In that regard. So that's really all that happens, which I am glad. Like, the sooner that Dougie is not Dougie anymore and that we actually get Dale, the better. There were those episodes where it almost got to a point where you just wanted to kill yourself, but then they pushed it to a breaking point, and then every episode they've really dialed it back. It's minor scenes compared to the larger story that's going on, which is great.
Exactly.
Because this one, the big story is about the Meachums, right?
Yeah, super douchebags. I don't know how I feel about Belushi in this role.
Yeah, as opposed to any role.
Fair enough.
Man, like, I just don't think he's living up to the golden days of What About Jim?
I was gonna say,
whatever it is.
Yeah. God,
According to Jim.
Right out of my mind. And this whole like candy scene, it was very weird, like we said earlier. And do we know, like, I know Duncan Todd and who he's dealt with in the past and stuff, but do we know who he is and what his purpose is? Like, does he work for the insurance company because he works for Sinclair, or he just works for the Meacham brothers as like a medium guy, or middle guy?
Are you talking about the guy with the slick back hair that sits at the desk, or are you talking about the...
the slick back guy with the black hair?
That's kind of what I'm trying to figure out, and maybe rewatching, now that there's a little more of a plot going on, it would make sense. But essentially, he sends the guy that Dougie called out for being a liar.
Sinclair also, what's his name in real life? Tom Sizemore?
Yeah, so he is the one that Dougie called a liar. He's the one that Dougie basically, through the Black Lodge, circled with those weird stares and showed his boss all these inconsistencies that tied to him. So he's kind of under scrutiny from Dougie's boss. Meanwhile, there's this other dude pulling his strings and obviously using the insurance agency to kind of do different shady criminal dealings on the behalf of the Meachums. Whether the Meachums are pulling all the strings, or whether this dude here is like connecting some larger, conglomerate. Like, a lot of that stuff isn't really clear at this point, but...
And it might never be clear, but...
Yeah, it may not.
I'm hoping we'll get some light, for right now, I'm thinking he's a middleman. Like, just between the Meacham brothers, somehow. Anyway, they learn that Ike the Spike has been arrested, and they end up recognizing Ike's attack on Dougie as, Mr. Jackpots. And pretty much, other than that, Sinclair comes to speak to them because Duncan says, you've either got to kill Dougie or you've got to convince the Meacham brothers to do it themselves.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it for that. Well, I mean, Candy, that was weird. I don't think she was talking about the weather. I think she was telling him about Mr. Jackpots. Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on there, because she is acting inconsolable during the time that the news report's on, and then she's talking to him longer than she'd like, and she's acting very indifferent. And I mean, that's the one thing where you're not quite sure what's going on. At the same time, right next to them is the new manager of the casino ever since they kicked that other dude out once Mr. Jackpots came in. So it's also like they're clearly within earshot of him, so they could also just ask that dude. So I don't know if it was just supposed to be this awkward moment or if it really is going to be...
Yeah, just one of those Twin Peaks moments, or if it's something.
Yeah, which, I mean, that's kind of where I'm leaning towards. But anything else in that storyline?
Nope. I think I'm good with that.
There's a little heartwarming
Yeah.
scene with Rosenfield on Albert on a date.
Which I loved so much. I think I just like the interaction between Cole and Preston about it.
Yeah, and we were talking, I don't know if it was last week or a different episode, but we were talking about how Albert is just like the biggest douche when you're first introduced to him, but by the second time he comes back to town, he's a little better. And by this show, like, it's a character, he's just kind of a douche, but with his heart in the right place, and you like him, and he's working towards the greater good. So
He's a lovable dude.
yeah, so it's nice to see him with the
And she's like a sarcastic, like, little firecracker, so it's kind of perfect.
yeah, the coroner that does stand up. I mean, what a match made in heaven.
I love her. She's probably one of my favorite characters in this season.
Yeah, no,
Just her little...
she's
I love
great.
puns. So then we have Cole sitting in his hotel room, sketching, and he answers the door for... It was supposed to be Albert, but he sees a vision of Laura Palmer before he notices Albert.
And did you notice what he was drawing?
No, what was he drawing?
He was drawing a deer with trees coming out of its back and a giant hand trying to grab those trees.
What does that mean?
You don't know what that means? You don't know what that's a clear reference to?
I don't.
Well, so there's trees in every single episode of Twin Peaks.
Yes.
Deers live in the forest,
Well, yes.
and then people go in the forest and they have hands.
Oh.
Right? I mean, that, if anything, that is the mystery of Twin Peaks.
That people have hands and deers are in the forest and trees are in every episode.
And that,
I get
and
it
that
now.
we should pet all nature lovingly.
You pet the deers in the forest with your hands because deers are in the forest and every episode has trees.
Yeah, which segues nicely into the weird Laura apparition.
Exactly. So Albert then shows him a text. The whole around the dinner table, the conversation is lively. The whole thing saying it was from Mexico. And they have Hastings. They have Matthew Lillard.
Yeah, and it seems like she responded. I mean, is the implication here that Diane is not in the up and up?
Yeah, I was thinking double agent.
I mean, double agent or, maybe just during all the things she was getting from Cooper, she kind of, through his investigations, found out about this other plane in existence. And then, I mean, maybe she's been duped by Mr. C very transparently. Like, maybe Mr. C has met with her prior and convinced her that he is indeed Dale, but he is like an enlightened Dale that knows about the secrets of the Black Lodge, and because of this, he needs to bring...
And that's her main interest, so...
Yeah, so what I don't know is that if she knowingly helping out, like, a villain, or in her mind, is this actually, like, an enlightened Dale? We really just don't know enough about what's transpired to... Nope. Man, I'm burping. Too much water. To know if she's actually, like, a villain? Like, is she really just being, gone to the dark side? So that, to me, is one of the more interesting things going on.
I feel like she's smarter than that, but I guess hypnotism in that way could be used as well. I don't know. Maybe I'm putting too much stock into Diane.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, she's a great character so far. She didn't really have anything in this episode, but I am very interested to see what that
happens out of that.
Exactly,
Yeah. About Laura Dern, real quick. I was watching this YouTube video with Laura Dern, Naomi Watts, and oddly enough, Patricia Arquette, and it was all about them meeting and knowing David Lynch. And apparently he has nicknames for a lot of his actresses, and he calls Laura Dern, and has always, Tidbit. He now calls Naomi Watts Buttercup, and Patricia Arquette is Solid Gold.
I wonder what he calls Crystal Bell, the redhead, because they've done 2 albums together, like two albums of music. That's how they met.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know if you've ever listened to David Lynch's music.
I've got much to learn.
Yeah, David Lynch has his own albums that have no guest stars on it or whatnot, and it's weird. It's like hip hop, but with David Lynch singing
What?
on top of it.
Stop it.
No, not at all. I cannot wait till this episode ends because I'm going to have you pull up some songs.
Oh my God. Okay, so well then let's finish this off.
Right?
Preston comes in and shows him a photo, and it's the glass box from episode 1
Yeah, pretty. So,
with Cooper and another guy,
oh, it was Mr. C, wasn't it?
Mr. C. I mean,
Yeah.
his doppelganger.
Yeah, so
yes.
we've seen Cooper go into that box during like the first few episodes as he's trying to find his way back before he ultimately ends up inside of Dougie. We have obviously seen the creature that rips off those faces, and now we've seen Mr. C in it. It's very clear that whoever has set up this portal to try to access this plane is fairly successful, and it's not just like
He's like, I want to go to the Black Lodge, but I don't want to live in Twin Peaks. So I'm going to set one up in New York.
right.
And I can visit it anytime I want.
Yeah. So without having to I don't know, go to some certain time of day next to some imaginary kid's place called Jackrabbit's Place. This is a little
Too much work, man.
A little more, yeah, exactly, a little more convenient. And then I think the only thing else we have is the log lady.
Yes, the log lady speaks to Hawk. She talks to him on the phone and pretty much tells him that the Truman brothers are his brothers, and that Laura is the one.
Yes.
I think we always knew that, right? Laura's kind of the one.
Laura is the one. We're seeing all these messages. I mean, we've been told in interviews and such by David Lynch that this season is about Laura. Laura is becoming like a Bob-like entity, but for good. And so
Yes.
my question mainly is, like, through her gift and the trauma and the impact she had on the town and all the ripple effects that came from it, is she kind of born now as this larger-than-life entity? Or is she an entity that's, I don't know, always been there? The reason I don't think it's an entity that's always been there is that if you look at Bob had a look already and simply inhabited other people, whereas Laura looks the same as Laura, right?
Yes, exactly.
At the same time, Maddie looks the same as Laura, so I don't know, maybe it's just a common look in the 90s.
Well, they were family, so.
Yeah, that's true. Cool. Anything else?
I got nothing.
Well, let's put a...
I want to listen to this music. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, let's
I
put a
wanna listen
bow
to
in this
music.
bitch. Go for it.
Yes. All right. See you later, little buddies.
Bye.